What if what if the greatest financial whistleblowers in history were actually the founders of the world's major religions?
Right.
And
Yeah.
what if the history, like the Roman Empire, the origins of your faith, even the calendar hanging on your wall right now was actually just this 2,000-year-old PR campaign?
A PR campaign designed by ancient bankers.
Exactly, designed by bankers to essentially keep you in debt. So welcome to our seventh deep dive into the Lebor Clann Glass, or, the Book of the Green Race.
Yes.
Today, we are focusing exclusively on books 20 and 21. This covers the years from 39 BCE to 69 CE, which the text calls the Age of Messiahs and the Age of the Nazarenes.
And, I mean, we are stepping into what is, without a doubt, the most sensitive, the most controversial, and frankly explosive period of human history.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the narrative constructed here, it takes everything we assume about the ancient world and completely, flips the underlying mechanics of it on its head.
It really does. And before we go a single step further, we need to make something crystal clear to you, the listener.
Yeah, very important.
The claims made in this source material regarding the origins of major world religions, political systems, revered historical figures, they are highly unorthodox.
Extremely.
They run completely counter to accepted historical narratives. So our mission today is not to endorse these viewpoints. We are not taking sides.
Right. We're just the messengers here.
Exactly. Our sole purpose is to impartially report on and, well, unpack this alternate reality presented in the text. We just want you to understand the actual mechanics of the arguments it's making, regardless of how provocative they might be.
That's the perfect framing. Because in this specific alternate timeline, the first century isn't, the familiar story of humble carpenters and divine miracles.
Yeah.
Instead, it operates as this massive, high-stakes geopolitical war. On one side, you have a rising alliance of Roman merchants, pirates, and bankers trying to establish a brand new economic world order.
And then on the other side,
On the other side, you have the ancient royal Hali, or Quilian bloodline, who are fighting desperately for the control of human history, natural law, and, well, the very concept of freedom.
okay, so let's get right into the mechanics of this conflict. The narrative points to a hard turning point around 39 BCE. Octavius, along with a group the text actually refers to as the Illuminati, completely transforms the Roman Empire.
Yeah, that word always catches people off guard.
Right. I mean, wait a second. When we hear Illuminati, we usually think of like 18th century secret societies in Bavaria. What exactly does this text mean by that term in an ancient Roman context?
It's a crucial distinction to make. The source isn't talking about modern conspiracy theories. It's using the term to literally describe the illuminated ones of early global commerce.
Ah, okay.
In this framework, they are a hyper-wealthy merchant and banking elite. Octavius and these bankers realize that physical, chains and whips slavery is actually incredibly inefficient.
Does he have to house and feed them?
Exactly. You have to house, feed, and guard physical slaves. But if you can bind people through debt, well, you own their future labor without having to maintain them today.
So they pivot the whole society toward a system driven by privatized land and compounding interest. They're essentially building the ancient equivalent of a global banking cartel.
Precisely. They wanted to replace ancient tribal ties of mutual trust with the absolute worship of money and property.
Wow.
It creates this illusion of liberty, like you're technically a free citizen, while keeping the masses entirely financially enslaved to the state and the lenders.
But standing in the way of this massive economic machine is the Hali bloodline.
Yes, the resistance.
Right. So in 28 BCE, a child is born to Queen Luachael and the Hali High King Kuroim. They name him Cuquilian, which translates as Hali of Hali.
And here is where the text completely rewrites the historical roster.
It really does. It claims this royal child is also known as Yesiah, or Joseph, and that much later, mythologies deliberately distorted his identity, remembering him falsely as the Celtic hero Cuchulainn.
And what's vital to understand here is how he fights back. He isn't positioned as some rugged, sword-swinging mythological warrior.
No, not at all.
He is a highly educated, globe-trotting intellectual. Kikian travels extensively, mastering astronomy and natural law. Eventually, he attains two massive titles, the Great Prophet of Yeb and Pontifex Maximus.
Okay, Pontifex Maximus, we know that's the highest priest in the Roman Empire, but what is the great prophet of Zeb? I mean, what is Yeb?
In the context of this text, Yeb relates to an ancient understanding of the cosmos, natural law, and astronomy.
Okay.
It signifies that his authority doesn't come from mysterious magic, but from a profound scientific understanding of how the universe actually operates. He understands the mechanics of reality.
Which makes him a massive political threat.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the text points out that Empress Livia Drusilla tries desperately to steal the Pontifex Maximus title from him to give to her son Tiberius, but Emperor Augustus flat out forbids it.
He had to. The title was legally binding.
Right, so because the Roman elite can't beat Cuculain intellectually or legally, the narrative introduces a darker tactic. A faction of corrupt priests at Qumran, led by a man named Zechariah, decides they need to manufacture their own figurehead to control the public.
Yeah. Zechariah wants to engineer a virgin birth Messiah.
Which is wild.
He actually tries to convince Cuculain to back this scheme, claiming that apocalyptic signs are magically appearing in the heavens. But because Cuculain is the great prophet of Yeb, he uses his knowledge of astronomy to completely debunk Zechariah.
Right.
He essentially looks at the sky, calculates the planetary alignments, and tells Zechariah, I know exactly how the stars work, and you are entirely making this up.
It's like a modern political operative trying to launch a viral PR campaign based on fake data and just immediately getting fact-checked by a leading astrophysicist.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. But I have to ask, if the Holly leaders rely so heavily on logic, astronomy, and natural law, why is Zechariah so desperate to create a messiah based on magic and fear? Like, how does that actually help the bankers?
Well, think about the mechanics of control. Zechariah and the merchant class do not want a population that understands natural law or thinks critically.
Because then they can't be manipulated.
Right. If the masses understand how the world works, they realize the debt system is a man-made fiction. But a messiah of fear, someone who threatens eternal punishment, demands sacrifice, and performs unexplainable magic tricks that induces absolute psychological dependence, it makes the people rely entirely on the priests for their salvation, which keeps them completely compliant.
So, because Zechariah fails to recruit the educated Holly leaders, the text claims he resorts to a literal transaction. He goes out and buys his own Messiah.
Literally buys one.
According to the source, Zechariah purchases a child for 30 pieces of silver. He names this child Yawaniah, who we know historically as John the Baptist.
And this is where the ideological war truly begins. With the help of figures like Gamaliel and Simon Magus, they groom this child. The narrative describes their creation as a religion led by wolves in sheep's clothing. They deliberately avoid teaching wisdom. Instead, they rely on cheap spectacle, healing hysterics, claiming to control the weather.
Right.
And they combine this with terrifying nightmare stories of a vengeful god.
The text even says they invented a year zero calendar. I really want to pause on that because it's such a bizarrely specific detail. How does changing a calendar give a banking cartel control over a population?
It's brilliant, actually. If you control how people mark time, you control their memory.
Wow.
By implementing a year zero, you are systematically severing the population from their ancestors' timeline. You are telling them everything before us was primitive and irrelevant. True history begins with us. It's a foundational tool of psychological manipulation.
And while this fear-based PR campaign is launching, the text presents the alternative. Jesus, named here as Kulak, or Yahuziah, is born to Cuculain and Queen Mariah. And in an incredibly loaded detail, he's born on the Ides of March. But instead of staying in the Levant to fight John the Baptist locally, the 16-year-old Jesus escapes into the wilderness and journeys far to the east.
His journey is all about gathering the collective wisdom of the ancient world. The source outlines his time studying with Zoroastrian magi.
He goes everywhere.
He really does.
Mhm.
He learns from Jains, where he adopts strict vegetarianism and the absolute principle of doing no harm. He lives with Brahmins in India, studying the migration of the soul, and learns from Buddhist monks.
And when he returns, his message is a profound contrast to Zechariah's creation. Jesus teaches that the greatest wisdom is simply to love one another.
Yeah.
But, here's where I have to push back on the premise a bit. It sounds like Jesus is offering this beautiful, enlightened path, yet the narrative heavily implies that people actually wanted the fire and brimstone fear that John the Baptist was selling.
They did.
Why? Why would an oppressed population choose the nightmare?
It's a really brilliant question about mass psychology. You have to remember the trauma of Roman occupation. These people were heavily indebted, oppressed by military rule, and completely stripped of their dignity.
Right, they had nothing.
Exactly. If you are angry and entirely powerless, a message of pure love and inner peace can feel insufficient. It feels passive.
Ah, I see.
But a vengeful, angry God who promises to violently punish your Roman oppressors, That appeals directly to a disenfranchised population. Fear and vengeance feel like power when you have absolutely none.
Wow.
Jesus was trying to break that cycle of fear entirely, which required a radical reframing of reality.
And this rivalry reaches an incredibly dark climax. The Romans eventually arrest John the Baptist, and the text states they crucify him at Golgotha. In a brutal display of mockery, they hang a sign over his head that reads, King of the Donkeys.
It's designed to be the ultimate public humiliation.
Yeah.
And yet, the source highlights a stunning act of grace here.
Uh,
Despite John the Baptist being the literal figurehead of a movement designed to destroy the Holly bloodline, Guquilian intervenes. It's showing extreme compassion. He gives the Baptist a royal burial in his own tomb. It perfectly demonstrates the exact principle of unconditioned love that Jesus was trying to teach.
But burying his rival with honor doesn't fix the underlying rot. Jesus realizes that teaching spiritual enlightenment isn't enough when the system itself is structurally rigged.
Yes.
And this is where the source material makes its most explosive pivot. Jesus realizes that to actually free humanity, he has to attack the foundational engine of the Roman Empire. He has to destroy the concept of debt.
This is the critical juncture. At an earthen amphitheater in Nazara, Jesus preaches the Beatitudes, but he goes much further than a sermon. Using his inherited legal authority as Pontifex Maximus, he issues a formal edict.
Let me stop you there because I have a hard time believing that an entire global empire's economy could be crashed by one guy making a speech in an amphitheater.
I know, it sounds crazy.
Right. Did he actually have the legal authority to do this, or was it just a symbolic protest that spiraled out of control?
In this narrative framework, he absolutely had the legal authority. The Pontifex Maximus wasn't just some guy who led prayers. He was the chief administrator of Roman divine law.
Okay.
In the ancient world, contracts, oaths, and debts were deeply intertwined with religious law. By leveraging this supreme title, his edict held actual disruptive legal weight.
Okay, so what does he actually decree?
Hmm.
The text says he declares all men and women are born equal. He completely forgives all worldly debts. He outlaws slavery entirely.
Yep.
And he decrees that no one can be bound by the debts or transgressions of their ancestors.
And notice how he fundamentally redefines the core symbols of his movement to align with this economic liberation.
How so?
Well, baptism and the cross are no longer symbols of suffering, guilt, or subservience to a vengeful God. He reframes them as the act of dying to the falsities of this world.
Oh, wow.
Meaning, you completely reject the Roman system of debt, greed, and nihilism, and you are reborn as a free, unburdened human being.
This is wild. He's not just a spiritual savior. In this text, he's an ancient anti-corporate whistleblower systematically dismantling their GDP.
Yes, exactly.
It's like someone hacking the mainframe of a major credit bureau today and permanently deleting everyone's credit score. The economy relies entirely on the illusion that those debts are real and permanent. So if he deletes the ancient equivalent of everyone's mortgages, the Roman elite must have retaliated with everything they had.
The retaliation was born out of sheer systemic panic. According to the text, hundreds of thousands of debt-bonded slaves heard this edict and instantly rejected their status.
I bet.
In Gaul, specifically in the city of Lyons, mobs stormed the temples and literally burned all the bankers' physical records of debts and slaves. The conflict shifts instantly from a theological debate to an all-out global class war.
Which forces the ousted corrupt priests and the Roman merchant elites into a desperate alliance. But erasing debt on paper doesn't erase the power of the people holding the debt.
No, it doesn't.
The Roman elite couldn't just arrest Jesus. They had to completely rewrite the reality that allowed him to have power in the first place.
Exactly. And the text details exactly how they did it. A massive drought hits the region. King Jacob, who we know historically as James, the brother of Jesus, is ruling Nabatea.
Right.
He catches the priests of Baal and Mithra exploiting the chaos. They are hoarding grain and fleecing refugees, so Jacob exiles them.
These exiled priests scatter, and one of them, Josephus, travels to Rome. He forms an alliance with the incredibly powerful Piso family.
Yeah.
And listener, remember our mission here. We are impartially exploring the universe this book builds, because what the text alleges next is a total ground-up fabrication of recorded history.
It's massive.
It claims that Josephus and the Piso family invent a secret language called Cyphera, or cipher.
The mechanics of Cypher are fascinating. It wasn't just a code to hide troop movements. It was a method of embedding political propaganda and altered histories into texts that appeared to be innocent spiritual allegories. Using this cipher, the source alleges they constructed entirely fabricated religions. It specifically claims they invented what he calls Judaism, framing it in this text as a commercial religion designed from scratch by slave traders and bankers to enforce societal control.
It also claims they set up false monasteries, like the one at Qumran, operating them as ancient propaganda factories. Their explicit goal was to forge historical texts. The source specifically points to the Septuagint to literally write the Holly bloodline out of existence.
If you're listening to this and thinking this sounds completely insane, how could history be forged on that scale? Remember the mechanics of the ancient world?
There was no internet.
There were no printing presses. If you controlled the few centralized monasteries and scriptoriums that produced the written word, you controlled reality. You could replace a genuine history of intellectual, debt-free Celtic kings with a fabricated narrative centered on perpetual guilt, victims, and fear.
It's ancient identity theft on a planetary scale.
Literally.
The hackers don't just steal your bank account. They rewrite your family tree and convince the world your ancestors never even existed. And the text claims this alliance went to horrific lengths to validate their own forged documents. For instance, the Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE.
Yeah.
The narrative alleges the Piso family intentionally started it to fulfill the apocalyptic terror they had just written into their fake prophecies.
And Emperor Nero's response to the fire is equally calculated. He brutally purges the Anea, Cassia, and Pliny families. He hits them with damnatio memoria.
Damnatio memoria, it translates to the damnation of memory. It's essentially the ultimate ancient version of cancel culture.
Oh, way worse than cancel culture.
Right. They didn't just execute you. They literally chipped your name off of every public statue, burned your birth records, and made it illegal to speak your name so future generations wouldn't even know you walked the earth. They were wiping the slate clean to write their own version of reality.
But while Rome is burning and history is being forged in scriptoriums, the Holly bloodline and the Celtic tribes make one final, massive stand for physical and economic independence.
The text asserts that Jesus survives the Roman attempts on his life, travels to Cruthry, modern-day Scotland, and becomes the Emperor of the Celts. And his first major move, he orders all Romans completely out of Britain.
Just kicks them out.
This sparks an unbelievable uprising. Boudica leads a ferocious attack and utterly destroys Londinium, which the text explicitly notes was the main stronghold for the Piso family's mercenaries.
And the rebellion spreads to the continent. In Gaul, a leader named Vindex burns the banking center of Lyon to the ground. He founds Parsi, which becomes Paris, explicitly designing it as a city of equality and honor, free from Roman law.
They aren't just fighting, they're building a rival economy. The text notes the Celts established their own uncorrupted mints in Paris, Cologne, and Pamplona.
Right.
They are stamping their own currency to completely bypass the Roman central banking system.
It creates this profound, dark contrast. On one side of the continent, the Celts are successfully building a debt-free society based on natural law and equality.
And on the other.
On the other side, Rome is descending into unspeakable cruelty to maintain its empire of debt. And these two completely incompatible versions of humanity collide in 69 CE.
The fracture point of the ancient world. Roman General Vespasian, advised by Josephus, lays siege to Jerusalem. And the psychological warfare the text describes here is genuinely chilling.
It's horrific.
To break the will of the defenders, Josephus institute a policy of burning children alive in front of the city walls every single day.
It's the ultimate manifestation of the fear-based control they designed. The text says they started with one child and added another every day. By the 30th day, they are burning 30 children in front of the gates.
Unimaginable.
Finally, the city's leader, Simon, surrenders. The text records him saying they are giving up because they are fighting animals without souls.
The cruelty is the point. According to this narrative, 69 CE represents the death of the ancient world's chance at freedom.
Rome secures its power, not through superior philosophy or natural law, but through unmatched brutality and the total, calculated manipulation of truth.
The Holly bloodline is forced to the absolute fringes of the map, to Scotland, to Ireland. Meanwhile, the Roman Merchant Alliance solidifies its control over the written word and the global economy, setting the stage for the reality we inhabit today.
It is a staggering journey we just took. We've explored a completely alternative history presented by the Lebor Clann Glas, a world where messiahs are highly educated geopolitical royals.
Where spiritual teachings regarding baptism and the cross are actually tools of economic warfare against a debt-based empire.
And where major religions and historical records are framed as elaborate ciphers created by a corrupt alliance of bankers to enslave the human mind.
It forces a complete reevaluation of cause and effect in history, at least within the framework of this specific text. It asks us to deeply consider how much of what we accept as organic historical fact is actually the result of centralized power protecting its own wealth. And again, to be absolutely clear to you listening, this deep dive is an exploration of the fascinating, highly controversial claims inside the source material, not an endorsement of them.
We are just reading the blueprints we found in the attic.
Exactly, just reading the blueprints. But those blueprints leave us with a profound question about the architecture of our own lives.
They really do.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. If the premise of this text is right, if history is indeed a cipher written by the victors, a facade built over the real foundation, what everyday systems in your life do you just accept as natural?
That's the real question.
From the way your bank account calculates compounding interest to the holidays you celebrate on your calendar, how much of what you call reality might actually be the result of a 2,000-year-old PR campaign?
It certainly makes you wonder who actually wrote the rules of the game we're all playing.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Keep questioning the narrative, and we'll see you next time.